You need to take pride in the work that your team or your department do, and you need to make sure that filters down to them. The worst thing you can do is take credit for the achievements of your team or your department, because it's a team, and every one of those people has hopefully contributed successfully to that outcome. And if you don't share that down, if you don't make sure that the rest of the business knows that it's those individuals that have done the hard work, then you risk losing them. And good talent is hard to find and even harder to retain. You've got to motivate them, and nothing motivates people more than having and being told how well they're doing.
Recognized, and you know, and it's great. And as a leader, that's what we need to aspire for. Get people way better than us, and then build them up and recognize them. Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders in Tech, where we're interviewing leaders in technology that are pushing the envelope and changing this world for a better place with their employees and their ideas. Today we have with us Richard Billington. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Richard, for the audience, can you tell me where do you live, what's your full name, and what do you do for a living?
So it's Richard Billington. I'm from a place called Bedford in England. About 90 miles north of London, for those that don't know it. And I work for an organisation called Netcall, and we specialise in software for the customer engagement and intelligent automation space with a platform called Liberty.
Liberty. So basically you have a software product and then you sell that product. It's like a SaaS model, or like how does it work?
So it's a platform that essentially contains a number of products. So within the customer engagement side, we have a contact center, web assistants, and chatbots. And then in the intelligent automation side, we have a platform called Liberty Create that allows you to build web applications. And alongside that, AI, robotic process automation, process mapping, and intelligent document processing. So all of those tools are surfaced through a single UI, single platform, and organizations can use a little bit of everything to create a digital transformation end-to-end journey.
That's amazing, Richard. So basically what your company provides is actually almost like a software development kit for your clients to build whatever they want.
Yeah, it's a tool set. And we've referred to it previously as sort of blocks of Lego. So regardless of what you need to build, you've got those blocks and you can arrange them as required to deliver an outcome.
That is amazing. How long have you guys been in business?
Long time. So, I mean, I come from an acquisition that Netcall made in 2017 of an organisation called Matsoft. That was going for 20 years. Matsoft developed the low-code platform Liberty Create, and that was actually before low-code was even a thing. So that was a term that Forrester coined, actually. Gartner had a different term for it, and before that, they might have been referred to as sort of 4GL solution. So it's all about, WYSIWYG, drag and drop, building something. Without doing traditional development. So we started Matsoft about 20 years ago. We were acquired by Netcall in 2017. Netcall have been going even longer than that. And they started purely in the contact center customer engagement space. So Netcall was all a result of making telephone calls on the internet, when obviously that was a new and unheard of thing. So they started in that customer engagement world and realized that customers, staff calling in, working with an organization didn't want their interaction on the internet to stop at the point they made that initial inbound call. And obviously, subsequently, web assistants and chatbots, that initial contact was better served when it then moved into the back office as well. And that's where the digital transformation tool and the Liberty Create platform sort of complemented what they had nicely. So when you put the two together, You can get that inbound call, that inbound interaction. You can then screen pop all of their details from your back office systems. You can push them through a workflow. You can keep them updated with communications, emails, SMSs, and so on, and sort of, digitally take them end to end. And that's obviously, even now, a relatively new concept. We all still call up people and they transfer us to a different department, or they tell them, you'll get a call back and so on. To keep people on that digital journey from A to B is still something a lot of organisations are striving for. And I think Netcall realised quite early on that was the way the market was going. That kind of digital experience was what we expected, probably off the back of, buying things on Amazon. They've got it so slick, the order process, fulfillment process, returns process, bang, 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 all digital, all end to end. Ordering a pizza from Domino's or via the app, choose your toppings. Pizza goes into the oven, they show you where it is within the cooking process, and then they show you where your delivery driver is on the streets near your house to drop your pizza off. End to end, you know exactly what's happening. That is required, I think, in every organisation, because we as consumers demand it now, because we're used to having it via those Amazons and those Domino's, and there's many other examples as well. And I think Netcall realised quite early on that the contact centre up front, communication side of things is all well and good, but you've then got to keep that engagement going all the way through your process with your customer, your staff member, your patient, whoever it might be. And by putting our two pieces of software together, we had all the building blocks that were needed. And we've made subsequent acquisitions along the way. RPA was an acquisition, IDP was an acquisition, and we've folded them into that toolkit. But we've always done it in a way that the UI, the way in which things are configured, the experience that the builder has to be consistent. So it's not and should never feel like 3 or 4 different pieces of software that you've thrown together. No, it's one experience for you as the builder. It's one experience for the customer using it, regardless of how we acquired and integrated that capability.
This podcast is brought to you by ISU Corp. Are you having trouble with your software projects? Is there a project that's taking too long, or a technology you can't handle? We can help. We are ISU Corp, experts in custom software since 2005. With almost 20 years of experience, we can solve any technical problem, from new businesses to satellite software. We've done it all. Let us turn your ideas into reality. Learn more about how we can help by visiting us at www.isucorp.ca. Your solution starts here.
Richard, and you did great, because that's in my experience, that's some of the biggest problems I see when companies acquire intellectual property and try to bring them together. Then it looks like a Frankenstein, and the user experience suffers a lot, especially the user experience, right?
Yeah, no, it's been an absolute priority. In fact, all of the acquisitions that we've done have been done on the basis that we could integrate them like that. So I use the recent IDP acquisition that we did. Their service was effectively headless. So they had this back office, brain, AI-based, that was performing the extraction of information from a document. And their UI was sat upon that, but it was all driven via APIs. And therefore we knew that we could just put our own UI on top of it. Nothing within the back end would need to change. And therefore it wasn't a case we were rebuilding something that we were buying. We were just putting a new skin on the front end. And therefore we can bake that into the platform in a way that our customer would never know that had come via acquisition, as opposed to just being built and delivered in exactly the same way as the rest of the platform.
That's exciting. Richard, I was looking forward to this podcast because of that reason. I mean, ever since I started with computer science when I was 16 years old, I was always looking for a way to automate even the work of a software developer. I was raised as a software developer, a software engineer. And I remember even back in the 90s, you dabbled into this thing called case tools, where like you had modular programming. WYSIWYG was coming up, and then the web took over and we went back 10 years. I remember once you started doing client-server programming, you were like, oh, this is amazing. I can design my screens without having to write code. And then web development came up like in the late 90s, mid-late 90s. And here you go, back on writing CSS and HTML, trying to figure out where everything lays on the screen. So as automation started to evolve, I knew that technologies were going to be evolved to a point where actually end users could actually build their own workflows. And it seems to me that that's what you guys are doing now, right?
And it took a while to get back there because the browser, which is obviously your client to building, wasn't powerful enough on day one. But over the years, as the browser has become more capable, as cloud hosting has become prevalent, suddenly you have the capabilities that we as developers can then provide you the tools to be able to do things yourself. So we always say Liberty Create is essentially like a WordPress, but for building web applications. So when you look at a basic website, like you've just suggested, everyone went back to HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. They'd have to code things. Then you ended up with software like Front Page, Microsoft Front Page. Do you remember that? And Dreamweaver.
Yeah, I remember that.
Remember those? They became drag and drop a little bit, but you were dragging and dropping chunks of code around.
But it was very inefficient. Remember, it was so slow. That's what people never used.
Slow, inefficient. The code that it produced was never brilliant code because obviously it was trying to cater for absolutely everything. But then you evolved from that to capabilities within the browser that suddenly allowed you to have a canvas and drag and drop, components, elements on and so on. And then you got software like WordPress that came along that capitalized on that and allowed a non-developer to build a website by dragging and dropping. And it was around that time we'd just developed some software for the Market Harbour Building Society within the UK. And it was around their ability to track a mortgage from the point somebody applied for it through to the point they released the funds. And it was a very basic application. You had 5-6 key stages: application received, checks done, lending manager happy, funds released, mortgage closed. And they said, we're sort of using this in the back office just to keep track of where someone is within the process. But actually, it'd be great if we could show the customer that. Because if the customer could see where they are within the process, then they wouldn't have to ring us up and ask us. And they would know that, we were on it, we were doing something. It wouldn't have just gone into a black hole and they'd never know where they were. So we said, we could take that same information and just present it through a customer portal. And they were like, brilliant. So we did that for them. The mortgage application tracking system, MATS, which is where that acronym came from, was released. And they then said, well, that's brilliant, but actually we've got a million other processes that we manage within the bank that we then expose to customers that, again, they've got no visibility of. So can we take what you've done for us and can we make that process, and can the process be dynamic, not just a linear set of steps, but have decision points? And then thereafter, can we push work through it so our back office staff, but also our customers, can see exactly what's happening? And again, without the capabilities of the browser and without that sort of cloud architecture that allows us to launch apps at the click of a button via the AWS APIs and so on, you wouldn't have had all the elements that were needed for us to be able to build a platform that enabled that end organization to map and manage their processes. So like everything, it's a point in time. Things come along at the right time. Sometimes they're too early and they fail purely because the market isn't ready for them. And I think it'd be fair to say we never set out to build a low-code platform because that wasn't a concept that anyone was ever familiar with at the time. Right place, right time, technology landed exactly when we needed it. And before you knew it, we'd built the UK's first low-code development platform. And then
amazing.
Netcall acquired us and combined it with their software, and you've then got that end-to-end engagement.
It's amazing, Richard, because, you look pretty young, but I got white hair all over me, but it looks like you've seen the evolution of the internet and technologies, right?
I'm starting to get all the white hair as well now. Don't worry about that. I landed in development off the back of education, really at the point where they were moving from the BBC computers being wheeled into the classroom through to schools having computer labs with 20, 30, 40 computers.
Right.
Literally, I remember my first year at upper school went from that, and the computer lab was built at the point that I left secondary education. Whereas now, my son, who's just about to complete secondary education, has grown up from day one. They've got tablets in class, they've got computers in class. So, they are very used to technology being in and around and part of everything they do. That wasn't the case with me at all. We just had that computer lab built. That sparked my interest in computers. So we're talking 95, 96, around that sort of time frame. And I knew that I enjoyed using computers. I knew it was a potential career path without, thinking I might end up as a CTO necessarily. And I got a job doing sort of systems administration. And that organisation, they were software developers themselves, but they sort of came to the system administration team and said, we want to build an intranet. And I always remember the CEO going, oh, internet. We were like, no, intranet, as in internal, all of our own documentation for our own staff. That was an entirely new concept at the time. And he was like, well, we're not paying anyone to build this. But if you guys want to just build something, you're more than welcome. So I got myself an ASP book. This is way before ASP.NET, just the standard vanilla ASP, and built ourselves a little internal website that our staff could use to share information. There was, a calendar with all the events that were coming up. There was a notice board, all these things that everything's, moved on from these days, really. And we built an intranet, and that was my first entry to sort of web development at that point. And that was, when would that have been, sort of 2000, something like that. And I realized at that point web development was the way that I wanted to go in my career.
That's amazing, Richard. Even for me, I started a little bit earlier than you, but I saw the fast difference. Like when I first got introduced to computer science, was because my dad took me into a engineering school in the early years of my high school, actually, and they had Commodore 64 computers.
Yeah.
People will laugh, right? People will laugh, but if you look at the memory of a Commodore 64, it's like I don't even think there is any device that will be able to operate with that type of memory. It was like so little, right? 64 bits.
So I had a ZX Spectrum. Do you remember ZX Spectrums?
Yeah.
Everyone had either a ZX Spectrum or a Commodore 64. They were the two options that you had at that time.
Yeah.
I know. I remember typing and writing games by getting a book or a magazine, and it had all the lines of code, and you had to go through all of that code typing, and then you got like a little beach ball game at the end where the ball is a little ping pong style game after all of that work. But that was my introduction as well. Those computers started a generation of web developers, I'm absolutely sure.
And it's fascinating, right? Because then, I remember going to university and they brought the first mouse.
Yeah. And
we were like, what is that? And the graphical user interface, when the Macintosh came up with the Mac, that you remember the little tall Mac, black and white?
Yeah.
And we were like, what is that? Fast forward 1998, my daughter was born in 1998. I mean, like the human interface, the mouse was so common that she knew, like since day one, as soon as she learned how to talk, she was playing with a computer mouse in a computer.
Yeah.
At 3 years old. Now she's graduated from university with languages degrees and marketing, and now she's a marketing professional, building websites for other people. The same way that you and I are talking about now, right? It's all end user, like she's not a developer. And
I remember specifically when mouses came out, my son at the time was really young, my mum obviously older, and he immediately could get a mouse and could move it around the screen and could coordinate his hand movements and his eye movements to get the mouse to go where it wanted to go. My mum, obviously from a generation that had never used computers, it took her ages to be able to move the mouse and make the pointer go where she wanted to go. That hand-eye coordination just wasn't there because they'd never had anything like it before. Whereas our kids, their generation, it's just immediately natural. And I'm sure you're the same. If you've seen young kids now on phones, tablets, their ability to navigate around the screens, the touch, the gestures, and so on, that just come like second nature, and they retain them immediately, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's incredible how everything has evolved. And also to your point, the browser and the internet speed is what has allowed companies like yours to flourish. Because I remember the first major project we did as a company. So I run a custom software development shop. We implement applications for our clients. And the first big job was we were building a financial system for the education space in North America. So the plot was, it was client server and they needed to put it on the web. This is 2005. And so we were building all this amazing code with the greatest technologies, doing all these financial applications online. But then once we started doing some end user testing, we realized that it was too slow.
Yeah.
We compared the speed compared to the client server system where all the processing was happening at the desktop. People didn't want to use it. So like the company was in serious trouble after spending millions of dollars on this port into the web. They were like, if we don't speed it up, we're gonna go bankrupt. Like it was life or death. So I started doing research. I'm like, what are we going to do to make this work? It was 1 megabit per second, the internet, and that was fast back in 2005. 1 megabit was like, whoa, right? So like I remember the CEO of the company, my client said, there is no excuse. We have amazing internet nowadays. And I remember like Microsoft launched this component, inside the browser, where you could start doing some Ajax. Do you remember Ajax?
Yeah.
So, but the component was in the browser, and that allowed us to start building code remotely and doing asynchronous calls within the browser, and that saved the company. And now that company is $100 million enterprise after being bought and sold for a couple of times.
Wow.
But that was the single thing, right? Mm-hmm. Finding out, of course, at the beginning we said you can only use Internet Explorer. Remember that?
Yeah.
But then that became standard. And now if you look at the modern browsers, they are so robust that you can build pretty much anything you want. And it's fast. It's like, you have the separation layers now. It's like, it's a dream, right?
Yeah, and how many companies failed during the dot-com boom because they came too early, browser speeds, internet adoption wasn't quite there. And then obviously once the funding dried up, they disappeared. I can't remember the name of the website, which is annoying, but it was the one that they had all of the trainers and you could spin them around and you could turn the trainers around. Something that we now, when we go online to buy clothing, just expect to be there naturally. They had all of that technology. It cost a fortune to build. They hadn't managed to monetize it at the point the dot-com boom came around, and it ultimately failed. And yet now every website has it. It's table stakes. They were just ahead of their time. They ran out of money before the adoption and speed increases, within internet connections generally, caught up with their vision for how you would shop online in the future. And I bet there's many examples of that, to your point and your example, where organizations had the right idea, they knew what they needed to do, but they maybe went too early, or funding dried up before they could monetize it. And
then some other people, they managed to do it. I don't remember the name of this guy, but he was pioneering streaming media, and now he's a billionaire. He even bought a basketball team, I think.
Right.
But he started with, in 1996, 97, he had the idea to start streaming sporting events on the internet. Imagine trying to do that back in 97.
Yeah.
Like doing actually IPTV in the 90s. But he figured it out, and that's how he got going. He started buying and selling. He went through the dot-com era where he got millions and millions of dollars to put his platforms. He didn't go bust in the dot-com crash, and now he's a billionaire. But I don't know how he was able to manage. And I remember, like, if you look at the history, I wish I remember what was his name, but now he owns even a basketball team.
If you think how difficult that still is now, because we saw, I don't know if you saw the Netflix streaming of the Mike Tyson-Jake Paul fight, and they had all sorts of streaming issues because of the demand on the service. and the way that that streaming service works. So to have pioneered it that early and delivered a viable product that obviously was worth however much it was worth, if he's now a billionaire, shows how ahead of time he was.
I know, and it's like, but that's when I just see people that are geniuses, right? Because these other guys, they had a great idea, but they were too early and they couldn't actually fulfill the market because of the internet limitations. This guy, I remember, like, if you see the screen when he was his services, when he made it live, it was so small. Like, it was just like, a tenth of the browser where you could actually watch the game, but people were actually watching it, and it was so like robotic, but people still liked it, and that's what made it happen for him. And of course, his team started to create, buffering, and they innovated a lot. But he was the pioneer of IPTV.
If you can get in early and execute.
Mark Cuban, that's his name. Mark
Cuban, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, if you can get in early and you can actually execute. I mean, ideas are brilliant. Lots of people, I think, have ideas. The difference is your ability to execute on that. And that's true within software development generally. It's normally the people who execute the best are the ones that ultimately succeed. For sure.
Richard, back to the business that you are in right now. How do you guys distribute your software? Because one of the biggest mistakes startups make is that they have brilliant people with brilliant ideas, but they have no idea how to go to market. And I tell you, like, I had a partner back in 2011. He pretty much left me the whole business because he went off to build a startup. And this was a successful tech entrepreneur. He went to build up a startup with, I think, $4 or $5 million of raised capital, and they failed miserably because they couldn't go to market. The product was great, but they didn't know how to sell it. So how do you guys go about and distribute your product?
It's a good question. I mean, to some extent, building the software is sometimes easier than selling it. So you've got to work out that distribution model. And technically we're SaaS, so that simplifies things to some extent, right? We can turn you on a version of our platform at the click of a button and give you access to it at a very low cost as well. It's not like we have to go and buy tin, put it in a data center, install that. So we can incentivize you to try our software really simply. And that might be through the use of proof of concepts and prototypes that we'll work with you to create to prove the value that you can get by using our software within your organization. Budgets, especially in the UK public sector, NHS and so on, have been slashed to the bone. So people normally buy us to save money. So they believe they can get rid of other third-party licensed software, or they can streamline their business, they can reduce headcount, they can improve efficiencies, but there's normally a monetary value associated with the purchase of our software. So we'll work with them through our innovation teams to just build proof of concept prototypes to help prove that, to justify it, to back up a business case that they're ultimately put into their business. So that's one channel. We also sell via a number of implementation partners. So they will use our technology to provide a managed service into an organization. So that might be they've picked up a government contract to deliver the student bursary grants or similar. So that might be managed by a big third-party SI that's staffing it up, that's doing all of the wraparound, but they use our technology as the core of their offering. And we're just providing that technology, they're providing the managed service, and that's being sold into an end organization. And we build products ourselves. That's the sort of third channel. So we will use our own technology to build a product, a solution to a problem, and then we'll sell that under more traditional SaaS licensing per user per month, as an example.
That's fascinating. Part of the course of my business, my main company, is to do that, right? For example, right now we are representing a SaaS company that focuses on financial technology. So they are replacing Interact, they are replacing the way business to business send money.
Okay.
We're using something very similar to blockchain technologies, but it's an end-to-end solution. So we go in, and we implement and we customize, right? And I think it's a beautiful way for the developers of the technology to penetrate markets. So it looks to me that you are doing all of it, right?
I think you have to. I mean, software is a competitive game. There is people in all of the markets that we play in, and there are competing platforms and technologies in all of the capabilities that we have. So, within the contact center space, we'll compete against NICE, 8x8, 5.9s, and so on. Low code space, you've got OutSystems, Mendix, Power Automate, Appian. There's some big players in each of the spaces that we play. So we try to win by simplifying the offering, ensuring that we give you the capabilities that you need without that sort of feature bloat that comes with a lot of VC money being thrown at you and you needing to justify that. We see that all the time. Some of these platforms, some of our competitors have become hugely complicated, almost to the point where non-developers can't really use them anymore. And that defeats the point of a low-code platform in the first place, which is supposed to be for non-technical people. So we're really conscious of that, trying to avoid that. Keep the solution simple, make it easy to use. We pride ourselves on our onboarding in that our e-learning courses for people to get upskilled on using our technology is the lowest of all of our peers in the spaces that we play. And I think if we can get people using our technology quicker, then they should get to value faster. And therefore, that I think is how we win against some of these big US monoliths that we're fighting against.
That's fantastic, and therefore that's why you guys are successful. Are you in the US or you're only in the UK?
So we have got some US customers. It's not an area that we've penetrated massively at all. We've sort of tried to own the UK market. A couple of the recent acquisitions that we've done have been in Europe. So by extension, we've picked up a number of European clients. And for many reasons, obviously, Europe's easier for us to sell to and to work within. So that feels like a more obvious target market than the US, where you've obviously got time barrier, and so on to overcome. I think we would need to put more feet on the ground in the US if we were really going to compete over there, whereas we've now got feet on the ground in Europe. So it feels like that we'll continue to try to work within the US, don't get me wrong. We've got a number of customers we'll continue to leverage and try and grow over there. But if you're asking me where most of our revenue growth is going to come from, I think we've still got a long way to go within the UK and Europe.
For sure. Richard, quick question. So we talked about all the wonders of your career, which is fantastic. Congratulations. And I want to know about your failures. What has been the biggest problem you ever encountered as a professional, and how do you overcome it?
Wow, that's a question. So maybe it's through, I was going to say a lack of ambition. Maybe that's not right, but I've not moved jobs very frequently. So, and as I've managed to do well in the roles that I've had, which has ended me up where I am, without too many huge failures. Now, like I say, that might be an element of I didn't take risks and leave what might be perceived as comfortable jobs that I've then managed to grow in with the organisation. I didn't take a punt and go and join a startup when I had some offers at certain points through my career, because I was in a steady, stable job that I believed, if we got right, would see growth both for my own personal development, but within the organisation itself as well. So I honestly can't say that I've had huge failures along the way. And I think I've navigated that by continually learning. So although I was a developer by trade and therefore came into the CTO role with a development background, there's a lot more to a CTO role than just a development and a technology background. So I've really tried to keep both technical but also business qualifications up to date, and I sort of challenge myself every 18 months, 2 years to have done another formal qualification to try and keep myself relevant in the space. And as a result, I'm continually learning, and maybe I've managed to dodge some failures along the way as a result. I've just, as an example, finished an MBA for technology leaders through an organisation called CTO Academy. And one of the main reasons I did that was I'd come from a technology background and therefore hadn't been as involved in finance and funding, which is one of the modules I've just completed to jump to top of mind. And therefore, I felt like I had a number of years as CTO and therefore inevitably some experience, but couldn't really back it up and prove that I was a rounded CTO that had done every element of what might be needed by a technology leader in today's world. And that qualification, exposed me to examples and to experience that I definitely wouldn't have had through my day-to-day role, because maybe the finance guy looks after that, or the support team manager looks after that, and therefore it was a really valuable exercise to have gone through to try and keep myself up to date with current trends.
It's amazing, Richard, because you took the positive approach to life. You are actually preventing, you are anticipating instead of reacting, right? And that's one of the biggest things that in my life was lacking. So my failures were catastrophic. As my successes were huge, my failures were also huge. So my life, my technology life was a roller coaster until I realized the value of getting educated at the job, at your career. Yeah. Right? For me, I did something similar, but it took a lot of failure to realize that I didn't know what I was doing. In 2013, I realized I already had run the company for more than 10 years, and I realized that I wasn't a good leader. I was a great technologist. I was awesome at presenting solutions to our clients, but I was horrible with my people. I was not a leader at all. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take this degree. I'm trying to learn how to be a leader. So thank God I found this organization that they focused on technology leaders that wanted to become CEOs. And I did this 1-year course, and it changed my life, because I really I learned about culture, for example. I learned about obstacles and how they are removed. I learned about different personality types. So, I was trained how to lead 10 people, then 100, then 1,000, then 5,000. And, so in a systematical way.
And the MBA I've just done had modules on all of that, because that is absolutely critical, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, if you don't do it, you're not running. You're kind of half walking, right?
100%. And I think I've probably been lucky with some mentors that I've had through my career as well, without going out and looking for them. Just individuals that I've met through the course of my working life. The CEO of Matsoft, a guy called Martin Scavell, sort of took me under his wing and mentored me in terms of management and leadership without either of us maybe even knowing it. I certainly didn't ask for it. He didn't offer it, but he just became a mentor to me. He grew that business and exited. I stayed with Netcall, and subsequently Netcall's ex-CEO, Henrik, has done something very similar. He's given me more responsibility, and then has sort of talked and coached me through challenges that we might have had within the business at that time. Again, without me asking him to be a mentor or him offering it. It's just happened. And obviously he's doing it because he wants the management team underneath him to do the best that they can do for the business. So, indirectly, they've both mentored me through challenges within my career that I might have had. And I think have ultimately, led me to the point of being a better people manager, people leader, technologist than I would have been otherwise.
For me, the biggest problem was that I thought that my employees were supposed to do whatever I say, and they were there to serve me. And I should have known better, because I'm a born again Christian. I love the Lord Jesus Christ as my Savior. And if you look at the Bible and how Jesus Christ led, it was a servant leadership. The whole concept of servant leadership comes from the Bible, actually. But it was like this. So it took me a year and several thousands of dollars to go and learn that from other successful global CIOs and very, very successful people that were part of my course. And at the end of the day, I'm like, they're teaching me servant leadership. So when I came back to the business, it started to flourish, because I realized that I was there to remove obstacles for my team and to be of service to them. And that, and that's crazy, because if you are the tyrant leader, if you're the leader, you believe you're the king and they're supposed to serve you, that culture trickles back to your employees and it becomes a horrible organization. But if you become the servant leader, that actually trickles down too. And then the culture changes for something like, how can I help today? Right? How can I attend your needs above my needs? Right?
For me, that is the number one. It's probably the thing that I do most of my days. It's the number one activity I have, is just to make sure everyone else can get on with what they're supposed to be doing. And maybe, having said that, sort of made me recall that I think I probably got lucky with that, in that when I joined Matsoft, we were split away from a digital agency. There was 3 of us, and I worked with a guy called Tom Allender. Absolute genius. So I realised very quickly that regardless of our positions within the business, he was always going to be better than me technically at everything the business needed him to do. So I had no desire to try and tell him what to do, because he would have the right answer. He's one of these guys, you ask him a question today, he'll go home and read a book, and tomorrow he can recite the book back to you. It just sticks. Any technology you can ask him a question on, he's just one of these, 10x devs, they might call them nowadays. And I think I've been lucky to work with him from that day, and we're still working together now at Netcall. And all I do is make sure Tom has everything he needs to get his job done. And if he has that, I know the technology side is going to be in good hands. And since then, every person I've employed, are they better than me at the thing that I'm employing them to do? If they're not, then I might as well do it myself. So I've just looked, everyone I've hired, are they better than me at that? Yes. Are they better than me at that? Yes. And you bring those people in, and then you get out their way, because they know better than you at what they're doing. All you've got to do is make sure they're all aligned with whatever the company goal and priority is, clear any obstacles they've got, let them get on with the job, because they're better than you at it.
That's one of the most amazing key factors about a successful team. You nailed it, Richard. The minute that you start realizing that you gotta hire better people than you, is the minute that you start growing.
Yeah.
The problem with that is that, at least in my case, was that I was a narcissist. When you have pride in your life, you want to be the best, even unconsciously, right? And so unconsciously, you're choosing people that don't know as much as you do, because you want to shine.
Yeah, you want to control.
You have to break that if you want to be a good leader, because if you have that mentality, you will never succeed.
You need to take pride in the work that your team or your department do, and you need to make sure that filters down to them. I think the worst thing you can do is take credit for the achievements of your team or your department, because it's a team, and every one of those people has hopefully contributed successfully to that outcome. And if you don't share that down, if you don't make sure that the rest of the business knows that it's those individuals that have done the hard work, then you risk losing them. And good talent is hard to find and even harder to retain. You've got to motivate them, and nothing motivates people more than having and being told how well they're doing.
And recognized, and it's great. And as a leader, that's what we need to aspire for. Get people way better than us, and then build them up and recognize them. And then you will reach success. It's easier said than done, though, right? Like when you are there and you're a new leader and you're like, what am I doing here? And you get full of fear that you may fail. That's what this ego starts to build up, trying to protect yourself from something that might never happen, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's human nature, like you say, different personality traits. Again, like we've said, those personality tests on people within your team can really help you identify the different ways you need to manage people, because some people need an arm around the shoulder, some people need a kick up the arse. It's all for the best reason, to get the best out of them, to drive the best value for you and your team. But everyone's different, and you can't treat everyone the same. It's just understanding how you need to manage them.
That's one of the things that I was taught in my course, and my leadership course. It's almost like I had a minor in psychology, because you really need to understand personality types. How do you deal with an introvert person versus an extrovert? How do you actually give them what they need to thrive with their own personality type, right?
Yeah,
it's not easy.
while not just letting people run off, they've got to be. It's got to be controlled to some extent. Obviously, you need the team to work together. You can't have a personality trait for someone who's overbearing. Overbearing people who are maybe a little bit shyer, more introvert. So it's that balance all the time, isn't it? If I bring this person in, I need to make sure this person doesn't get overawed by it, and finding that balance, getting that mixture of individuals within that team that ultimately allows all of them to succeed.
For sure. Richard, we've been talking for over 40 minutes now, and I know you're a big executive. Thank you so much for your time. I really admire your career. Thank you for sharing. Time is something that nobody can give you back. So I'm honored to have you in the podcast. So one last question before we finish.
Okay.
If you had access to a billboard in front of the busiest highway on earth, what would you write on it?
Be nice.
Be nice.
If we all did that, people, the world, these days, people just aren't, I think if everyone went out with the mantra of be nice every morning, the world would be a better place. And I think sometimes we all do it. We can get wrapped up in our own problems. We can get wrapped up in the world around us. We can read stuff on social media and online that gives you an impression of the world, gives you an impression of other people that ultimately 9 times out of 10 is wrong. I think most people out there are nice, are good, genuinely good people. And if you approach them positively, you'll get that positivity back. And it's too easy to forget that sometimes. So I'd stand there, be nice. If my boss is listening, it'd be buy Netcall. But no, be nice, I think, is the message I'd want to portray.
For sure. And that comes from do unto others as you wish them to do unto you.
Exactly that.
That's the golden rule.
Yeah.
Be nice, right? Yeah. Treat others the way that you would like to be treated, right? It's simple.
Too many people don't these days. And then, we're all busy. And like I say, negativity on the news and in social media maybe makes people walk out with a shield up. But, if you're walking into a building, hold the door open for someone. If you see someone running for the bus, hold the door for 30 seconds, let them get on. Those little acts of kindness, those random acts of kindness can make a huge difference to people. And you never know what demons people are fighting. You never know what problems they're trying to overcome. Those little acts of kindness can make a huge difference to people's lives.
For sure. Richard, thank you so much for your knowledge and your wisdom. If people would like to find out more about you, are you on LinkedIn?
I'm on LinkedIn, yeah, Richard Billington. And I think there's a profile page on netcall.com, but LinkedIn's certainly where you can get hold of me. Twitter as well. By all means, drop me a message if you think there's anything that's worth discussing.
Wonderful. Also, one more thing, Richard. If people would like to get in a hold of your services, because it sounds fascinating, what is the main website? Where can they go to learn more about the company?
It's just netcall.com.
Netcall.com.
Yeah, simple as that.
Fantastic. Richard, thank you so much for your time. God bless you and have a beautiful rest of the week.
Nice to speak to you. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to the Leaders in Tech podcast. Check in next week to keep learning how to use technology and leadership to change the game. See you next time.